Good evening, everyone. I just want to check that my voice is audible and screen are visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So today we need to discuss lots of things, but before discuss regarding project and other things in today's session, we continue first Hibernate JPA. And after complete Hibernate JPA, we are going to discuss the doubts and the things regarding project. Okay. Okay. So let's start. So look here, we are going to discuss the Hibernate JPA, and for that things, I just review that things. We already discussed what is the JPA. So the JPA, it stands for Jakarta Persistent API, and it's useful for defined standard for managing relational data in Java application. The Hibernate is JPA compliant, and that means Hibernate implements a specification which is provided by JPA. So maximum time when we are develop any application that's a database related application using Java, we are prefer a JPA because it's have abstraction layer. That means a standard API for ORM that decouples application logic from the underlying implementation. The JPA is portability. That means application can switch between different JPA providers. Like if you require any other ORM like Eclipse Link, then it is easy to switch Hibernate to Eclipse Link. It's have a standard annotation. That's a define entities, relationship, configuration using annotation like @entity, @ID. The JPA are useful to lifecycle management. That means it's manage lifecycle of entity from transient to persistent to detached. Like Hibernate provide HQL Hibernate query language, the JPA also provide one query language and it's called Java Persistent Query Language. In short, JPQL. And it's a platform independent queries we can write using that query language. And for that reason, we are use Hibernate JPA within a Hibernate. So how to use a JPA within a Hibernate? So let's see. For that reason, we are create one project. It's the same project which we are create for a Hibernate native API. Same project. Look here. I created one same project. That project name is Employee CRUD Hibernate JPA. Within that project, we have entities. What? We have entity. There are entity name is employee entity, and we know that things how to create employee entity, right? So within that entity, we are create one class. That class name is employee entity, but it's showing a red mark. That means it's showing errors. It's showing errors because we are not write any dependency within our POM file. So let's write a dependency within our POM file. So we have Hibernate native application, native API application. From that native API application, I just take the dependency. It's a dependency with the bill of material. So that things I copied and paste after version. Okay. Okay, that's it.
तर काय काय शिकवायले पण जरा लक्ष द्या आता. ते डिलीट सगळं.
Please mute your mic. Okay. So when I create my project, if you notice, there are JRE system library, and that JRE system library are showing Java SC 1.8, but we are working on Java version 17, right? For that reason, I just need to change my Java version. And how to change Java version? Look here. For that reason, we are use a property within our pom.xml file. So here I'm going to write that things within pom.xml file. So here I'm going to write a properties after a version. Look here. I just write one tag. That tag name is a properties. So using that tag, we are define which Java version we are going to use within our project. So it's a source is a 17 and target is a 17. That means when we are build our application, we are use a 17 version. And when we are deploy our application, that application also runtime are used. That's a 17. So here, just we are write that things. Once we are write that things, I need to update my project. I need to update my project. So right click, go to Maven, and let's update a project. So please remember that things. Whenever you are change within your POM file, you need to perform that action, that update Maven project. So that Maven project is updated now. Now let's switch to entity. When I open entity class, that class name is an employee entity. It's a holding annotation at the rate entity, at the rate ID, at the rate generated value, at the rate column. And we already discussed that things, what's the purpose and why we are use that things here. So here we are simply create entity, and that entity purpose is what? To create a table according to our entity class within a database. Once we are create that entity class, after that, what's the next thing? Next thing is what? We required JPA configuration for Hibernate. And for that reason, we have a resource folder. Within a resource folder, we need to create one another folder. That name is meta hyphen inf. That folder I'm created here within my resources, but make sure that folder name is in capital letters. And within that folder, I create one new file, that's a SQL file. So I need SQL file. XML files, not SQL, XML file. So I need one XML file, and here I need XML file, and that file name is persistent.xml. So that persistence.xml file I'm going to create here. Click to finish. So that file are created here. Now we required a schema tag. So that schema tag is a persistent. Persistent. It's a schema. That schema is XMLNS equal to. It's belong from URL HTTP, and we are going to use a persistent with Jakarta project. So that's why Jakarta project are holding that all persistent configuration and persistent annotation. So that's why we are use HTTPS Jakarta dot EE slash XML NS. It's a URL where we can get a persistent configuration. Okay. Next, that persistent configuration is worldwide unique. That means it's a unique, and for that reason, we need require one another URL, and that URL I'm going to write here. So just wait. I'm going to write next URL. And that URL from W3 organization. So it's a HTTP. HTTP. Okay. The next, we need to define schema location, and for that reason, I'm going to add it's a schema location. That's schema location defined on one URL HTTP jakarta.ee slash XML NS. It's a persistent. Once I'm completed my configuration, I will summarize that things for you. The version which we are using, it's 3.0. Okay. After that, once we are declare a schema, after that, we need to enter a root tag. And what's a root tag for our persistent XML file? That's a persistent unit. It's a root tag. And name for that root tag, it's I'm given one identifier. That's my. Okay, so that's name I given for my persistence unit tag. Okay, so that's a root tag. Once we are declare root tag, after that, the next thing, the next thing, the next we need to write properties, and that properties we can write from Jakarta persistent. So that's why whatever properties we have, that properties I'm going to copy from our older project. Okay, look here. When we write property for persistent, we need to use a Jakarta package. So here, instead Hibernate, I'm going to use Jakarta package. Jakarta, and it's a package Jakarta. It's a persistent JDBC dot driver. Okay, here I don't want to use values separately, so I can use one another attribute within that properties. That attribute name is value. And at the end, I need to close that tag. Okay, so we are define our first property, that for a JDBC driver. After that, we require a next property, that's a JDBC URL, and it's belong from Jakarta persistent JDBC URL. Next, we required our username. It's belong from Jakarta persistent username. Next property we required for password. And it's a value. Now we required a schema generation. For schema generation, we are use Jakarta persistent schema generation instead Hibernate. And that value which we are going to use, it's update. Okay. The dialects are not going to use here because it's updated Hibernate version. So we are not use a specific dialect. Let's check why it's showing error. We required one parent tag. That's the name is a properties. It's a plural. And for mapping, persistent have have the different thing. So I just copy that mapping class, paste outside of properties, and here instead mapping, I use directly class. Okay, so configuration are completed. So let's summarize that thing. When we are use a JPA with Hibernate, then we required a configuration. That configuration different than Hibernate config.xml. So when we need to write configuration, we need to create one file. That file name is a persistent.xml. This file we are created within a resource folder, and within a resource folder, we need to create one another folder. That name is a meta-inf. That meta-inf holding our configuration file for Hibernate, that's a persistent.xml. When we are use a JPA with Hibernate, and within that file, the first we need to define a schema. That's the schema we define. After that, the root tag is a persistent unit. That root tag holding one a name, that means a unique identification name for our persistent unit. Within that persistent unit, we are declare a class. That's which class we are use as an entity. After that, within a properties tag, we are define multiple properties for a purpose for define driver, define URL, define username, define password, and schema generation for we are use update. So our database is if exist or table or exist with the data, then we are use a same structure without recreate it. So that's why we are use that update. So that's a persistent XML file. Is any question regarding that persistent.xml file? Okay. Once we are declare a persistent.xml file, after that, look here, to use that configuration, we required one object, and that object are belong from JPA. What? It's that object belong from JPA. So that's why I create one Hibernate util class. I create Hibernate util class, but here I'm going to use the different thing. That different thing is what? Instead session factory, when we are use JPA within Hibernate, we are use entity manager factory. Entity manager factory. So entity manager factory is a thread safe interface within a JPA. So that things we are going to use. It's a entity manager factory. Okay, that instance I created. Now I need to initialize that instance. So to initialize that instance within a static block, within a static block, within a static block, I need to initialize that instance. So that instance are initialized with using persistence. So here I just remove that things. That's older configuration. I just remove, and I use persistent. That persistent is a class. It's located in Jakarta persistent. It's useful to bootstrap your entity manager factory. So persistent dot method name is a create entity manager factory, and within that method, we need to provide our unique identification name, identifier name for our configuration, and that's name is what we are write, my persistence. Done. We are initialize our entity manager factory instance. Okay. After that, next, when we are use that entity manager factory, we required a single tone approach. And when we are required single tone approach, we need to create one method. That method return an object. So that's why we are going to create a method that's a return object of entity manager factory. and it's written entity manager factory. Done. One important thing, when we are create any connection, we need to close that things, right? So for that reason, I create one another method. So name is shutdown. And within that method, I'm going to close my entity manager factory. But when I want to close, when it's entity manager factory is not equal to null, and when it's open, then I want to close that connection. That's using entity manager factory object dot close method. So it's a close our connection. That things are important when you are write any Hibernate configuration. You must close that object which you are open. So that's why I write these things. So here our yes, Hibernate util class are completed. So is any question regarding Hibernate util class? What is the purpose of Hibernate util class? To create the entity manager factory instance, and that instance we are initialized with our configuration file. That file name is what? My persistence. Once we are initialize that object, then the same object we are used within our project. For that reason, we need to create a singleton method. So that's why I create one method there. That method name is get entity manager factory. This method return the instance of entity manager factory. And after that, we need to close that resource. So for that reason, I create one shutdown method. That shutdown method check if entity manager factory is not equal to null, and its entity manager factory is open. If that two conditions are matched, then we are going to close our entity manager factory. So that's a Hibernate util class. So here we are create Hibernate util class. So using that object of entity manager factory, we are initiate the instance of entity manager. So here we are completed our file. Now let's move. After that, we need to write services. Look here, that's the services. It's the same file which we are write for Hibernate native API, right? It's the same file which we are write for Hibernate native API. Just now we are not going to use Hibernate things. We are going to use Jakarta persistent API. So that's why I just remove that import. Now, what the things I'm going to use? It's an entity manager. So that's why I need to import. It's from Jakarta package. Jakarta persistence. And from that persistent, I need to import entity manager. It's the interface. That entity manager interface, it's same like a session, but it's belong from Jakarta persistence. After that, we need to import one another thing, that's entity manager factory interface.
वहिनी सकाळी लय भारी गाणी लावली होती.
Please mute your mic. Now we require entity manager factory, which is a thread shape interface. Okay. Once we are write that things, we need to perform our CRUD operation. So to perform CRUD operation, we need I created here a save employee method. Within that same employee method, I just check using transaction. That's a transaction belong from entity transaction. What? In a JPA, we have a entity transaction. It's belong from Jakarta Persistent API. Okay, it's done. Now, within a try with resource, we need to create one instance that belong from entity manager instead session. All right. It's an entity manager, and that entity manager instance I need to initialize with Hibernate util, and what's our method? That method I'm going to write here. Get entity manager factory, and I need to open that connection. So create entity manager. Okay. Once we are initiate our entity manager interface, after that we need to get a transaction. So that's why transaction using entity manager, I'm going to get a transaction. So it's a get a transaction. Here we are get a transaction, and now using that entity manager object, we are going to call one method. That method name is persist, and purpose of this persist method to add a data, and after that using that transaction we are commit our stages, and it's end here. Same thing we can replicate with list employee. It's a return entity manager with a create query, that query from employee entity, and it's a belong from employee entity class, and we required a list, right? But here we are use a method which is provided by JPA. It's a get result list. So it's converted a data into list. Okay, so it's completed get employee. After that, we need to update employee. For update employee, we need to use the same thing. So within a try, we are create instance of entity manager and initialize it. The transaction is belong from entity transaction. So it's an entity transaction. Now that transaction are holding get transaction. After that, using entity manager, we are get the employee data. Class is what? Entity manager. Entity. What's our class name? Employee entity. Merge it. Okay. So using entity manager, we are merge that particular object which are holding the updated data. So that things we are done for our entity manager to update a data. After that, we have employee ID, right? So we can use that things. Okay. So it's done. After that, we need to delete employee. So same thing, that transaction or belong from entity transaction. Instead of session, we need to create entity manager object. After that, that transaction interface object we are initiate with entity manager dot get entity get transaction. Now instead get we are going to use find. And to delete a data we are use remove method. Okay, that's done. Look here. So that's our CRUD operation. I hope you understand. Instead a session we are use entity manager. Instead session factory we are use entity manager factory. Instead of transaction we are use entity transaction. Only that things we are change here within our older code. That older code belong from Hibernate native API. Now let's move to execution. To execute, we are create one object, that employee service, employee entity, and from employee entity we need to set first uh, set first data. That data we are going to alter it's added new employee. After that, for update we are use the first name. That's but here to update it's a 6 number. That's the last name. To list employee we are use the same method to retrieve data using a loop. And once we are delete our that last row, we are fetching that data. Okay, now let's run. But before run, make sure you are start your database. So I'm going to start my database. It's a PG CTL. -l log file start. Okay, it started. Let's minimize and execute. Right click, run as Maven build, clean install. Okay, it's success. Now right click and run as Java application. So it's showing error. Let's check what's the error. Password. Okay. So we have missed something within our Excel file. Password is 123. Update empdb driver. So all things are correct. So where it's take from authentication. Okay, cannot get connection as a driver manager is not properly initiated. Let's check our POM file. We have dependency for driver, right? So here, let's add some dependencies. Jakarta activation. Version not required because it's uh, taken from our bill of material. So just I added 3 dependency which is required to execute our program. Transaction, activation, and persistent. Okay. Now let's check the Maven repository. Is it contain our all data? That means all library. Maven. Hibernate core is there. Okay, we have that all things. So here I change my POM file, so that's why I need to update my project. So update Maven, update the project, force to update snapshot. Okay, after that I need to run Maven build, clean install. Now we are able to create Okay, it's showing error that it's listed, but it's not annotated. So we are close that older project. Remove it from our list. Press new. Okay. Uh, ओके. तर थोडंसं अल्टरेशन करू आपल्या XML फाईलमध्ये, कॉन्फिगरेशन फाईलमध्ये. इट्स ए पासवर्डचा एरर दाखवतो तो.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर.
डायलेक्ट चेक करूत आपण. आपण डिपेंडन्सी हायबरनेट कोर. Serious SQL dialect.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर.
Yes.
ते लोकल होस्टचं एल स्मॉल करून बघा एकदा.
कुठे हे झालेलं आहे ओ
आपल्या पर्सिस्टंट XML मध्ये.
नाही नाही स्मॉलच आहे हा.
स्मॉल.
कॅपिटल नाही.
अच्छा, हा ठीक.
We have that entity. So I'm going to check my file structure, directory structure to resolve error.
Sir, can you show the Hibernate configuration.xml file?
That's our Hibernate configuration XML file. No, that's not. We can refer that also. Meta INF. So it's due to तर हा एरर कशामुळे येतोय? कारण आपला मॅवन सगळ्या लायब्ररी फेच करत नाहीये. कुठली ती लायब्ररी आपली मिस होते. त्यामुळे हा एरर येतोय. तर यासाठी आपण मॅवन बिल्ड करूत. टार्गेट फोल्डर डिलीट करू. ऑथेंटिकेशनची गरज नाहीये आपल्याला. ओके. मी कोड तुमच्यासोबत शेअर करतोय. तुमच्याकडे हा कोड रन होतोय का चेक करा एकदा. Yes, I'm going to share that code. Okay, so that's the project link. Please download that zip file, extract it, and open on your Eclipse IDE. But make sure when you're open that project, you make sure you need to update your Maven. That means you need to update Maven project. Once you update Maven project, then let's build with Maven using a goal clean install. And after that, try to run. But the changes are required within your persistent.xml file, that your database, that your username and password. Let's alter it and check, is it run on your side? From my older repository, I'm going to open another project. Okay. I just want to check that my voice is audible and screen are visible to you. I'm open my older project, but it's showing a same error. That's class is listed in persistent XML, but it's not annotated. So maybe that error it's due to Maven. That Maven are unable to fetch that all libraries. Is this project are run on your side? Just wait. I'm going to check what's the code I share with you. Okay, that's the updated link. Please check that code are run on your side. Check the updated link, download zip file, extract it, and make a changes according to your database within a persistent file. After that, make sure you update a Maven project. After that, let's build Maven using clean install commands, goals. That's a goals within a goals. And after that, go click to main and start to execute your program. But make sure your database is on before execution. Students, let's check a project and reply me. Is that project working on your side?
Yeah.
Typo mistake there. So is this program run on your side? That program is not running on my side because of class loading issue. That Hibernate is not loading that particular version of Jakarta Persistent. So to resolve error, just I need to restart my Eclipse IDE. I just restart my Eclipse IDE to resolve that error because the I cross check that all configuration it's properly configure JPA with Hibernate. There are not have any error. In my code. I just recheck my code. That's properly configured and there are not have any error. That error it's occurred due to it's not loading a proper library. So I'm going to resolve that things. Stop my database. Restart it. pg ctl -l doc file start. No, that error is from my insufficient library to download. That library are not properly downloaded, so that's why my class is not loading. But that code is correct. You need to check that code on your side. So I'm waiting for your reply. So students, did you check that file which I share with you? Is it run on your side? Is that share project work on your side? Students, I'm asking something to you. Is that share project work on your side, which we are implement using JPA with Hibernate? Okay, so we are going to continue tomorrow. Tomorrow, same issue we are going to resolve. And after that, we are discussing the project things. So thank you very much to attending today's class. See you tomorrow. So please wait there. I'm going to take attendance. Okay, it's done. So thank you very much to attending today's class. We will continue tomorrow and resolve this issue. And after that, we are going to discuss the project things. So I'm going to end this meeting here. Thank you. Okay, no problem. We will continue tomorrow, and tomorrow we are going to resolve that issue.